Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Love Letters to You podcast. I'm Abby, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. I've still yet to officially announce this podcast on any of my platforms or to anyone. So if you're hearing this, hello, I'm so grateful you're here. Today's episode is going to be about lessons I learned in college or things I learned in college. My 23 biggest takeaways from college, because I'm technically the class of 2023, even though I feel like I'm the class of 2024, because my 4-year graduation date is May 2024. I just graduated a semester early, and even still I graduated in December of 2023, so it's almost 2024. But we're going to do the 23 lessons I learned in college. But first, let's do our weekly debrief. Okay, first up, I kind of divided these into categories. I don't know if this is going to have more of a structure going forward, but I kind of just brain dumped everything that's been on my mind, on my timeline, and my conversations this past week so we can chat about it. Pop culture. Taylor at the Chiefs game. She was there this past weekend. They won. It was great. I think they're playing again this Sunday. But I saw one specific video of her being come on, yelling at Travis or whatever, just at the game, and that gave me life. That sounded so cringy. Whatever, it did. And then the Taylor Selena drama at the Golden Globes, that was kind of crazy to me. Okay, let's talk about food I've been enjoying lately, because food is a very big part of my life. I went to Taco Tuesday at local cantina recently, and I got the birria tacos. I first tried these in the summer and I loved them so much, and I just hadn't been to local cantina since. I don't go there very often, but I just went again this past week, and they were so good. I need to go again this Tuesday. And then also, I've been having chorizo soup this winter several times. My mom makes it. It's so good. She kind of makes it a little different every time, and every time I'm oh no, I'm a little bit worried because the original was just so good, but every single time it hits just as good. So I can try to get a recipe if you guys want, but like I said, she kind of makes it different every time, and it's so good. I'm also just in search of new recipes in food right now, because other than the chorizo soup and eating out, I have not been making very many meals. I haven't even found any that I really am loving eating right now. Even just really easy, semi-homemade things. So I need help. Okay, let's talk about content I've been loving lately. First of all, Jack Mack on TikTok. His videos have popped up for me before, but I just recently followed him. I love his takes. I feel they're so funny, so good. Some of the videos I just kind of scroll by, but when it's a topic that interests me, it's really good. I also love the sports content that he shares, because I'm a girl who I like to keep up with sports, but I'm not fully knowledgeable about everything, and I feel he talks about the big stories, and so I feel I know what's going on a little bit. That's enough. That is the entertaining stuff, the big stories and headlines and stuff, and a lot of the funny stuff. So love him. Mel Robbins, I listened to a lot of her podcasts the first week of the new year, which is just, great time to listen to a motivational podcast. And I also downloaded her free workbook or whatever for the new year, and have been slowly working through that. I actually made big progress in it one night and haven't dove back into it yet, because it is kind of a lot, but it's really helpful. And so I highly recommend that. It's totally free. It's awesome. I've been also watching BFF's podcasts. I go in waves with certain podcasts, because I'll watch them all, be all caught up, and then at some point I'll be okay, I need to just save any new episode that comes out, because I don't want to watch it right away. I want to have something to watch later, and then I'll kind of forget that it exists, and I'll get behind. So I was a few months behind on the BFF's episodes, and I've been binging them lately, and I love that podcast. I think it's great. The Swiftologist has been my obsession on YouTube for the past few months, since mid-fall. He has some hot takes. I definitely don't agree with all of them, and I don't even agree with his tone a lot of the time, but I appreciate people that just speak their mind no matter what, and he definitely does that. So if you like Taylor Swift content, and you like Taylor Swift content that's also kind of critical, and also very thoughtful, He's great. He is especially great because he's been a Swiftie for so long and he's met her so many times. So he like really knows what's going on. So when I want an analysis of something that really takes into account every single thing about her, he's spot on 90% of the time. The one thing like I disagreed with him about was that he thought when Taylor and Travis went to the Chiefs game, he thought that that was like their first date, and he was like, oh my gosh, she's so crazy for that. And I was like, there's no way that's their first date. They've been hanging out for a little bit of time for sure. And I was like, okay, I totally disagree with you on that. And I was really proud of myself because I was right in that instance. But like everything else he says, he like normally predicts correctly, if that makes sense, which is awesome. If you are a Swiftie, that is relevant. If you're not, you're literally crazy. Why do you even care? If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. It's fine. I've also been loving Natalie Zasek. She's like one of the only influencers that I like really keep up with every single thing she posts, because they're just like, when I'm scrolling on TikTok in my bed and I've given myself like dedicated TikTok time, I will go on her page and make sure I'm caught up with all of her posts because they're just so comforting to me. And she posted a productive morning routine video on YouTube the other day, and I've been like waiting to watch it till I like need to be like perfectly comfortable, ready for like the ultimate YouTube video vibes, that sort of thing. Like that's when you know it's good content, is like when you kind of save it, because you don't want to just have watched it like without fully enjoying it. Am I crazy? I don't know, but I love her. She's just a great follow all around on every single platform, because she has like really cool like Pinteresty photos on Instagram, and then on TikTok she, like will go to the sunrise, and like it's never too deep. I mean, I do think she does sometimes touch on like some deeper topics, but it's all very just like making the most of your life and not I feel like sometimes it might come across as like unrealistic, but sometimes I like to escape to that kind of content and just be immersed in that and like see the beauty in life and everything. So I really love her. Taylor King, or TK's Juicy Pools, I've loved her for a few years now, and every now and then like I'll really get into the groove with her content. And I think the new year, like these kind of motivational sort of posts is like where she really thrives, because she's such like a work hard, play hard girl. And I really loved her podcast about the new year. I watched her vision board video from last year while I was making my vision board, because her new one wasn't out yet, but it is out as of now, and I really liked that video as well. She's awesome for motivation. I think sometimes it can be like a little cliche or a little like stuff that maybe we should have moved past by now, but for the most part I really love her, and I really want to meet her. I want to be best friends with her because I feel like we would just click and vibe. So this is me putting that out there. I would love to have her on my podcast. I would love to be on her podcast. Taylor, TK, love you so much. Okay. I've also like randomly been into Tate McRae. That's not like really content, but like I love listening to her music. Like I feel like over the past few months I have become a fan of hers, is what I'm basically trying to say. I don't even know the whole album, but like I'll see like TikToks of her performing and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so good. I love her. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really get that invested into like pop stars that much. Obviously Taylor, love her. I do like Sabrina Carpenter from what I've seen of her, and now Tate McRae, what I've seen of her, I really love her. So yeah. I've also, on the music note, I've been listening to a lot of Travis Scott because I want to go to his concert next week. So I've been playing the set list like crazy, and I just like his music. It's so good. And then 21 Savage came out with a new album that I haven't really fully listened to yet, but what I have listened to I like. There's one song that's like Should Have Worn a Bonnet or something like that, and I think I like that one. I've heard it like twice, but okay, that is the content stuff that's been going on in my life. And then just other random stuff. Something that I have been doing this new year when I see a friend or something is I'll ask them about their goals for the new year and just like talk about goals with friends. And I feel like that's such a good like conversation to have around this time of year with your friends. Like if you need a new topic to talk about, ask your friends what their goals are. Obviously like there are goals you might want to keep to yourself, so I'm like, if you want to share what are your goals for this year, and just having that kind of conversation with friends I feel like is so uplifting and can give you ideas for your own goals, which is awesome. I've also just been trying to ask new questions in conversations. I listened to, I believe it was a Mel Robbins podcast with a girl who was talking all about charisma and that sort of stuff. And something she recommended asking people, as opposed to like, what do you do? Or something like that, is ask, what do you have exciting that's coming up? Or do you have anything exciting coming up? Or something like that. And I feel like that's an awesome first thing to ask someone, like either when you're meeting them or when you're seeing a friend, like what's new in your life, or like what is exciting that's coming up. And because it really opens the floor for them to talk about what they want to talk about. If they want to talk about work, if that's what's exciting for them, they can talk about that. But if they want to talk about something related to their family or literally anything, like they're talking about what makes them excited, which gives them such a great feeling inside. And I feel like just makes the conversation so much better, because obviously your conversation is going to be better when you guys are talking about stuff that you are passionate about and excited about. Like, what is better than talking about something that you're excited to talk about, is basically what I'm trying to say. So when you prompt someone else to talk about what they're excited about, I think they enjoy the conversation more, and you can enjoy the conversation more and can just, start a better conversation in general. I feel like I was talking in circles there for a second. I apologize. And then finally, I finished my vision board, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I made a little TikTok video and Instagram reel about it, and I really love how that turned out too. I can go more in depth on the vision board. I feel like I could do a whole podcast about it, and obviously that is like a New Year thing. But I think you can make a vision board at any point, and I think especially this year, one of like my focuses with the vision board is to make it something that is relevant every single day of my life, and not just something that has a bunch of big dreams and goals and wishes on it in January, and then in December it's like, oh my gosh, did these crazy things happen? And that's kind of part of the reason why I could talk about this for so long. That's just one element. So let me know if you guys want to hear more about the vision board process, kind of, not the typical stuff that you'll hear about a vision board, kind of the different nuances and things I've taken away from making vision boards in the past to make this one more effective, more motivating, more realistic, and all that. Okay, with that said, that was our weekly debrief. Thanks so much for catching up with me. And let's get into the content of today's episode, which is 23 lessons I learned as a class of 2023 college graduate. So my first lesson, you don't have to be, I didn't put these in any specific order. They're not in order of like most important to least important, or first things I learned to last things I learned. They're just in order of when I thought of them, and then some of them kind of relate to each other. So I tried to put those ones next to each other. But the first one I happened to write was, you don't have to be all or nothing when it comes to drinking or going out or staying in or anything like that. I feel like when I got to college, I knew that I didn't want to be blackout drunk every single weekend. And that's not a dig at anyone who wants to get drunk every single weekend. That is just literally what I knew I didn't want to do. I knew if I was doing that, I would be really sad. I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't be happy with my life. And so I kind of took it as all or nothing. I was like, oh, I literally can't drink. And also there's obviously the whole time you're in college, you're not the legal age to drink. And that's kind of a whole other topic of conversation. But let's just say you can drink, you are drinking, you're around drinking, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to be all or nothing. You can be sober if that's what you choose to do, and that's awesome. You can drink every single weekend if you want to, and that's healthy for you, and that's awesome too. But for me, neither of those fully fit what I want. I'd say I'm semi-sober. I don't drink. There are definitely months that I'll go without drinking. But then there's times when I'm okay, yeah, I want to go out more this month. Not even drink maybe, but just go out more. And there's months where I am okay, I really have no desire to go out. I kind of want to stay in more. And I think being honest with yourself about what you want is so important. I feel for the longest time, I just had ingrained myself in the identity of I hate going out. I don't like going out. I want to stay in. And even when I felt I would love to go out with my friends and maybe not even drink, but maybe just dance around or maybe have some drinks, I would not even allow myself to let that be a possibility because I felt it was part of my identity and my personality that I didn't like doing that. which is stupid and it's silly. You don't need to be one extreme or the other if you're not one extreme or the other. You can listen to your body and listen to what you want to do intuitively. And if one month you are like, you know what, nothing sounds better than curling up and reading a book, that's great. And then if the next month you're like, nothing sounds better than going out on the town and dancing and singing karaoke, that's great too. And that is definitely something I learned this past, like especially this past year of college, and really just let myself, like if I want to have fun and stay out late, like I'll make plans to hang out with my friends. But if I want to stay in, I'll do that. And it sounds so simple, and I don't know if anyone else struggles with this, but I really did. I don't know, I felt like it was part of my identity. I felt like I was not being true to myself if I, wanted to go out on the town. So, and you might feel that way, like in the opposite way, if you're like always going out on the town and the life of the party and, that, and you have like a month where you want to just like not do that and stay in, like that is totally okay too. And just knowing that that is literally like balance. It's what it's all about. This was like something that really hit me over New Year's, because I feel like over New Year's, I always kind of romanticized the idea of like staying in. I was like, I don't even like going out and partying on New Year's. But at the same time, I definitely did have a little bit of FOMO sometimes. And I was like, I don't know. I felt weird about it. But this year, a few days before New Year's was the Ohio State Cotton Bowl game, which was disgusting, by the way. It was terrible. We played horrible. But besides that, I was like, it would be fun to like watch the game somewhere. So I made plans with my friend to go out for the game. I didn't even drink, but like, I was out. I was with a bunch, like around a lot of people and whatnot. And that was so much fun. And then a few days later, it was New Year's Eve, and I had no desire to be out with people, especially after that night. Like there were already so many people there. And I was just thinking of how many more people would be out for New Year's Eve. And I was like, oh, that is crazy. And I just felt so good about my decision to stay in, just like I felt so good about my decision to go out. And again, it seems so simple, but I feel like we often, or at least I often, get caught up in thinking of what should I do? What should I want to do? That sort of thing. And it's like, just do what you want to do. Okay, next, number 2. You don't have to be around people who are just like you. Going off of this, I have so many friends that enjoy going out every single weekend. I have other friends that enjoy staying in more often. You don't have to be around people that are just like you. I think it's awesome to have really close people that have core values that are similar to yours and that sort of stuff, because that I think is really cool foundation for deeper friendships. But it's also awesome to have friends that have different values than you, and even of the friends that have the same core values as you, having friends that have different perspectives and just like are different people. How boring would it be if all of our friends were exactly the same? I think it's so cool to have friends that are different than you, and I also think that speaks volume of those people around you, that they're comfortable being around people that are different than them and they're still confident in who they are and stuff like that. And that's honestly something I'm trying to get better at, is just like, I can be friends with someone who's different than me and they can still like me. Like I'm still a likable person. I do not have to be just like them on whatever set of things it is. And I think, limiting yourself to people that are just like you, no matter on like what set of characteristics it is, can be super limiting. And obviously there are certain people who have different core values than you or think differently than you. It's not going to vibe. It's not going to mesh. And I'm not saying to force those friendships, but I'm just saying don't rule out people who might be a little bit different than you. Okay, number 3, your grades are not that important. This comes with big asterisks on it. First of all, I'm speaking this to you as a business student, a former business student, I guess now. My grades like in college don't really matter. Like I could go to get my MBA and like, yeah, they'll matter. But I'm also speaking to this to you as someone who was like really stressed out and obsessed with her grades all throughout high school and college. And even to my high school self, like I would tell myself my grades are not that important. I know for my medical girlies, my STEM gals, my future lawyers and doctors, that your grades are super important, and I'm not taking that away from you. But, if you maybe are in a similar boat to me where you stress out a lot about your grades and objectively they're not going to matter that much, it's going to be okay. I placed a lot of identity in my grades too, and so it was really deeper than just being like, your grades don't matter, you don't care, like I don't care anymore. That was not going to be a problem for me because I just could never, like, I had an unhealthy obsession with my grades. So those are the girls I'm speaking to. If you have an unhealthy obsession with your grades, it's okay. But also, like, it never went, like, I never really learned my lesson. I still was, like, always obsessed with my grades. So I guess I can't really speak to the other side of it. But yeah, you're going to be fine. If you got a bad grade on a test, it's going to be fine. And I would probably still be telling myself that to this day if I was still taking classes. But you know what? It's okay. Number 4, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. This one is interesting. Obviously, it can be applied to so many different things. It can be applied to the school you're going to. And I'm not saying this as a way to discourage you from transferring if you like are really struggling in your school right now and you'd be happier somewhere else. Obviously, like for all of these lessons I've learned, there are qualifications and disclaimers and exceptions and whatnot. So I'm speaking very broadly, very generally. If you have a specific situation and this doesn't apply to that, you know yourself and you know your situation best. I should have said that at the start, but truly, these are the lessons I have learned. But the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and that is obviously a broader life lesson. The grass is greener where you water it, and I just think there's no harm in making the most of your situation. And that's kind of also leans into my 5th lesson. So I guess I'll just talk about both of these together. The 5th one is make the most of your situation, but it's okay if it really isn't for you. So I would say for me, I'm thinking about my freshman year of college. I was struggling. I struggle with change. It's really difficult for me. I struggled my first year of high school. I struggled my first year of college. You could not pay me to go back to my first year of college. I did not like living in the dorms. I hated it. I hated sharing, like doing community. Oh my gosh, I have the hiccups. Excuse me. I hated using community bathrooms. I hated sharing a tiny room with someone else. I love my roommate. I still love her to this day. She's great. She was the best roommate probably because I was literally home all the time and she was wonderful still. But I love my personal space. I love my alone time. Freshman year, college, living in the dorms, that sort of stuff, it wasn't for me. If you're really struggling, it's okay. With that said, though, I still encourage you to make the most of your situation because you are living your life right now. And so no matter how you can make the most of it, I highly recommend that. And also just know, like the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes it is. Like my freshman year of college, the grass was greener in junior year when I was living in an apartment, okay? But the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So I would just, I don't know what else I can say about that. It just applies to so many things in life. I have a serious problem with this because jealousy is definitely like one of my biggest things of like being jealous of other situations or like always thinking something is better and it's not true. And you owe it to yourself to make the most of where you are right now. Okay, I hope that made sense. I feel like those ones I just kind of word vomited, but like didn't really say anything, but okay. Number 6, college might not be needed for what you do, but it might be a good idea. Again, I'm saying this as a business student, so for people who are going to become lawyers and doctors, you guys are awesome, you guys are killing it. Obviously, you need college. So I'm kind of speaking more to people who are not sure if they need college or not sure if college is worth it. I also want to make a note that I'm speaking as someone who did not have to worry about being able to afford college. I had a scholarship. I had help from my family. Like I knew at any point that the tuition would be paid and I would not have to go into serious debt in order to pay it. And I know I had a great financial situation going into college. So I'm making that very clear. And if that is not the case for you, I can't speak to that. Consider your own situation within your own circumstances. I don't want to come off as like dismissive towards that, but I'm saying I don't know what that is like, and I'm so blessed to not have had that be a factor in my consideration. But if it is a factor in your consideration, I don't want to, speak to it because I genuinely can't. I don't know, and I don't want to be out of touch in that sense. So I'm a business student. I mean, I always knew I was going to go to college. I never considered not going to college. But as I've gone through college, and even right when I was starting college, the conversation has become stronger and stronger around, do you really need college? Especially business students, entrepreneurs, people that are going into trades and stuff like that. And I would say I would 1,000 times over again go to college. Again, so blessed to have it as an option. For me as a business student, there were things I learned in my classes that were really meaningful and helpful. But I think more than anything, it gave me time. It gave me time to, try out different jobs and passion projects and stuff, but still not have to worry about fully knowing my future yet. Like, I was still a full-time student. And I guess you can still do that if you're not going to school. Maybe it's just like that it's more socially acceptable that if you're in school, you can also be doing other things and not have like a full-time job or have your life fully figured out yet. But I just found it really helpful to be like, okay, I'm a student, I'm working towards a degree, and I also have time now. I have 4 years to figure out what I really want to do with the rest of my life. Also, throughout those 4 years, through going to college classes and college clubs and stuff like that, you're learning more about yourself and more about what you want to do with your life that maybe you wouldn't have realized if you were to just take it on by yourself right out of high school without exposure to those things that are specific to college, in addition to any extra endeavors that you do while you're in college. So I think that college was the best decision for me. Again, so fortunate to have that be kind of a no-brainer for me. And I mean, also just kind of the added benefits of meeting new people, getting into clubs, having a community and like a school to root for and fun stuff going on. So that is kind of my take on whether you should go to college or not. That's just my perspective. Okay, number 7, start your passion project. I cannot scream this loud enough if I wanted to. I think if you're in high school, you should start your passion project. I think if you're out of college, you should start your passion project right this instant. I started posting on social media at the end of my freshman year of college, and I am so freaking glad I did. My social media accounts are not successful by any stretch of the imagination, but I've still become so fulfilled by them. I found a sense of purpose in them because I'm doing what I love. I also have had some really cool opportunities and things arise from them. I've practiced skills that can go on my resume from them, and it's amazing. It is freaking scary to think about what other people are thinking about you, but it's even scarier to think about like when you're at the end of your life and you're like, oh, I wish I would have done that. And to me, that thought is what provoked me, what spurred me into action to just go after my passion project, which for me was posting on social media. And it's the best thing I could have done. Like I said, opportunities, I felt more fulfilled. I felt like I had an identity. I was really struggling and having an identity crisis at the start of college. And this really gave me a purpose, as silly as that sounds. And so like I said, going back to the thing where I feel like I am really glad I went to college because I had that 4-year period of time to figure out what I wanted to do. It also gives you time to have this passion project without having like a full-time job. And that passion project might even end up becoming your full-time job. That wasn't the case for me, but that's the case for so many people. And how freaking cool is that if you want that to be the case? It's just getting started early and getting started when you have flexibility in your schedule. And obviously, even if you're out of college, I just recommend you start tomorrow. But the point is, college is an awesome time to start your passion project, but the broader point, now is the best time to start your passion project. Launch now, adjust later. Don't wait till it's perfect. That could be a whole podcast episode in itself, but that's number 7. Number 8, Google Tasks are your best friend. Google Tasks were my favorite way to stay on top of all my assignments in college, and I actually have a whole TikTok about this that I can link in the show notes. That's super easy for you to follow and see how I use them. But basically, I did not use a paper planner in college. I used my Google Calendar. It had all my events and classes and stuff on there, but it also had all my assignments. And Google Tasks gave me a really easy way to track all my assignments, super intuitively, user-friendly interface, whatever, and satisfying. You just check them off. It's great. Again, I have a TikTok on that, so you can watch that and learn how to do it if you don't know how. Number 9 is be flexible. I think this is so important because I am not a flexible person, or I struggle with being flexible. I love my routine. I love my non-negotiables and whatnot. And I feel like when I went to college, that is something I really struggled with, was giving up my non-negotiables. Because a lot of times you just can't even have your non-negotiables, which stinks in some senses. But I'm kind of more so talking about be flexible with your non-negotiables or your routine or whatever to make space for other opportunities. Because on one hand, just because of the fact that you're going to college, you kind of have to give up some things. I really liked making my meals at home and stuff, and I had to give that up at the dorm. That's one thing you kind of have to be flexible about, and I did not take that well. But on another hand, being flexible in order to, make more hangouts with your friends or meet new friends or go to different things and stuff like that. I just highly recommend being flexible because you're going to make more memories. You're going to embrace opportunities that you'll probably look back and regret not going after. And I know, if you're hearing this and you're but I love my routine. I hate, messing up my schedule. I hate, doing things last minute. I'm not a spontaneous person. That's me to a T. But I'm just highly recommending that you take into consideration the memories that could be made, the things that could happen and stuff from being a little bit flexible. And of course, there's balance there. So, yeah. Number 10. Listen to podcasts to broaden your perspective. Go to church. Go to guest speakers. These things, not just listening to your peers and not just short form content on the internet. I know podcasts are on the internet, but they're longer form content and, kind of zoomed out, if you will, not just little tiny sound bites. I think that at least I have a tendency to get stuck in just what little TikTok brain rot is telling me. TikTok brain rot freaking scares me, and it's real. And just being exposed to your little TikToks and what your peers are saying, I think it's so important to get a broader perspective. And so I recommend listening to podcasts that are an hour long. I recommend going to church and hearing what the pastor has to say or the priest has to say, even if you don't agree with all of it. Listen, get outside of the bubble. I feel in college it's really easy to get stuck in a little pure bubble and then also just what you see on the internet. So I recommend, going to church, listening to podcasts, attending conferences, seeing guest speakers. I think it's all really good and will broaden your perspective, and you can kind of start to formulate what you really believe and get exposed to different ideas that you disagree with and being okay, I disagree with that and I agree with this, and kind of really forming your own identity. Versus I feel it can be so easy when you're just around your peers and just seeing little things on TikTok. It can be so easy to just conform and grab onto everything that you hear. And I think it's so important to hear different perspectives in context and hear them full length, whatever, to make sense of different things and to also synthesize what you actually believe, if that makes sense. And to, hear something that you disagree with and be able to say, okay, I disagree with this, because you have your own opinion. So I think it helps you form your own opinion. It also helps you get exposed to different perspectives that you might actually agree with, and instead you disagree with what your peers were saying or something like that. I hope that made sense. Okay, number 11, invest in your friendships and learn how to be a better friend. I saw a quote recently that said, love others so radically they wonder why. And it is one of my phrases for the year because I think that's wonderful. I, at the beginning of college, like I said, was going through a rough time and like really isolated myself. I was not a good friend to people that I had been friends with for years. I did not see them for so long, and it makes me so sad. And I feel like I'm just at a point in my life where right now I feel so content and I feel like I love myself so much that I just want to give that love out to others. And this can be a whole podcast episode in itself too, but I've gone through some like friendships and relationships where I felt like I was giving so much of myself and was definitely like getting taken advantage of and walked all over and stuff like that. So not loving in that sense, because that is just so unhealthy and toxic, but more so just loving with detachment, like not being attached, just giving for the sake of that, because you love yourself so much and you want to share that love with others and not expecting anything in return. And it has led to the most fulfilling friendships of my life. It has also shown me who my real friends are, and not in a bad way, but okay, more so not as much who my real friends are, but more so what my friendship with different people really looks like, because I'll give so much love to the people around me, and some people will give it back tenfold and some people will just kind of sprinkle it back my way. And by loving with detachment, I still will give that love to people, but I'm not expecting anything in return. And I think learning how to be a better friend is really important as well, because it's just like working through things in a romantic relationship and learning how those work. It's learning the questions to ask, like learning to be a better listener and ask more questions of your friends, and learning what you do in friendships that might be toxic or frustrating or stuff like that, and learning more about that and recognizing my faults in friendships and really working on them instead of just being frustrated with my friends, and instead giving them grace has been really wonderful. And again, I'm saying this now at a place in my life where I feel like I have really become my own best friend and don't rely on my friendships for my own validation. Is really easy for me to say, because there was a time in my life when I was giving so much love to people, but it was because I needed that love back. Like I needed them to validate me. I was looking for their validation. So I guess the preface to this lesson is become your own best friend first, and then like really invest in your friendships. And because I feel like you can really understand the friendships and have truly healthy friendships once you understand your friendship and your relationship to yourself. Again, sorry, this one is long-winded too, but that's kind of one part of it. And then also investing in your friendships, because after college, you don't have that kind of traditional school setting to meet people in. And as I'm getting to the end of college, well, obviously I graduated, but my friends are still in college, so, you know, I kind of still say that. As I'm getting to the end of college, I realize like how blessed I am to have intentionally invested in some of my friendships this past year that I know they're going to last beyond college, beyond us all living in the same city, beyond it being so convenient to see each other, because I've made it a point, especially through this past like year and a half, to see people regularly, to check in on how they're doing and all that stuff. So it's not just going to be some like friendship of convenience that naturally dies when we, go different directions in our life or something like that. And the friendships have also been so genuine that I know after graduation, like we want to continue these friendships because we love each other and we want to support each other, and not for any ulterior motives. That is something that I am just so happy about going forward, because I feel like a lot of people have said that they, have a falling out with their friends right after college, or not even a falling out, but just growing apart, because I feel like some people may have been friends just out of convenience more so, and you realize like when you're not all living in the same place, you just aren't really friends because you haven't had a good foundation other than just convenience. And so I think friendship is so important. I could do a whole podcast episode on friendship, like I've said for these other topics, but for now, that is that on that. That's that on that. Number 12, you got to be doing something, but it doesn't have to be what you planned, what you should do, what your friends are doing, etc. This is more so in relation to jobs and career stuff, because when I was going into college, like my last few years of high school, I thought I was going to be a corporate gal. I thought I was going to be working at a big corporation. I thought I'd have all my internships figured out, all that stuff. Now, majority of my income from college has come from social media stuff that I've done on my own. I have an internship, a remote internship with a startup out of North Carolina. I still work for the girl I used to babysit for, and that role has evolved from babysitter to personal assistant. So I'm just saying, like, you got to be doing something. You should be making some moves, but it doesn't have to be what you planned, what you think you should do, or what your friends are doing. Because to me, all three of those things were like corporate gal who wears slacks and goes into the office every single day the summer of her junior year for her internship that's going to lead to a cool full-time position in like a cool city. But you do, like, you got to make some move on your career, but again, it doesn't have to be what you thought it should be. Okay, number 13, intentional alone time and becoming your best friend and spending time with Jesus. Super, super important. I touched on this in the friendship one, but I think intentional alone time is the big thing. Intentional is the big word here, because I had a lot of alone time my first 2 years of college, and those were my 2 roughest years of college. But it wasn't intentional alone time. It was me isolating myself when I needed companionship, and at that time, I needed someone to come and pick me up, and I needed to be making time for my friends and whatnot. And I was just by myself. I was on my phone a lot of the time. I was watching shows a lot of the time, blah, blah, blah. Over this past year, I have loved my intentional alone time. It's alone time that I schedule into my schedule, truly, for doing my hobbies, like baking, like reading, like sometimes just scrolling on my phone or watching a show. But it's intentional and it's balanced with time with other people. Because if you're just alone all the time, that's not where you want to be. But you also don't want to never be alone and sitting with yourself. And I think a lot of times there's 2 ends of the spectrum. I was on the end of the spectrum that was just me being by myself all the time, and that was not healthy. But I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like they always need someone with them, and they're not comfortable being alone at all. And I think that intentional alone time is something that is so special, because it's like I'm making space on my schedule for myself. I have a busy life. I have so many people I love and that I want to see and that I make time to see. And just as much as I make time for them and my work and stuff, I make time for myself, because I am going to be with myself my whole life. And when I make that time for myself, I'm also intentional about it, because I love myself and I want to become my best friend. So I'm going to treat myself like my best friend. I'm not going to spend this time with myself rotting away and wasting away. And obviously there's a time for rotting in bed and whatnot, but not all of that time is going to be spent like that. It's going to be spent making myself a better person. It's going to be spent doing hobbies, and not even like making myself a better person in terms of like grind, health, fitness, whatever. It's literally just like knowing that hobbies are good for me versus screen time, or going out on a solo date is good for me and gets me out of my comfort zone versus staying at home one day. So again, could be a whole other episode, but I hope you guys kind of can see the distinction between just time by yourself and intentional alone time, and what you do in that time that makes it really meaningful. Journaling, reflecting on things, like that is so important. I was not doing a lot of that when I was spending all my time by myself. Like I said, I was just hiding from the things that were haunting me. And now in my alone time, I like to spend it uncovering those things and journaling about them and getting them on paper and being completely honest with myself. So yeah, very important. Number 14, this is about money. Decide what's important to or for you and what you're going to spend your money on. Again, I am approaching this from a position of privilege where I have always had money in my bank account. I it's my money that I have worked for, but I also know that if I happened to use all that money, I would not have to worry about a place to live or food to eat. And I am so blessed to be in that position and to be able to say that. And I want to acknowledge that that's the position I am coming from. And I do not know what other positions are like. And I'm approaching this topic from that position where I have discretionary income that I can choose to spend my money on things. Okay. So if that is not your situation, do not apply what I'm saying because it might not be relevant for you. Okay, regarding deciding what's important to or for you, maybe you love to have a really pretty cocktail on the weekends, and like a $15 cocktail makes you so happy and it's awesome. Spend your money on that. For me, I have a hard time spending my money on that, but I will gladly spend my money on a really nice meal. I will gladly, actually, you know what, better thing to say here, I will gladly spend my money on a $15 dessert. That is what I will gladly spend my money on. And so it's kind of like picking and choosing things that are what you want to spend your money on, and it doesn't have to be the same as everyone else. And that's going to kind of help you budget things. I don't like spending my money on clothes, but like I said, I will spend my money at a restaurant and buy the meal that I really want, even if it's a little bit more expensive. I'm trying to think of other examples, but I also struggle when it comes to spending my money. So this is not something that I have fully worked through, but something I just noticed was like for some people, they really liked spending their money on clothes or on alcohol. I feel like those are like the two big things that I just never really loved spending my money on. But instead, I always got dessert with my meal, and I would love to go out to eat. Like I'll never say no to going out to eat. So, just kind of have that balance in mind. And then kind of going off of that for number 15, you don't have to buy all the trendy items. That was not something that I felt important enough to spend my money on. And a lot of times those things go out of style so quickly, it can just feel like you have to have them to fit in. And I promise you, you're going to survive. So I really recommend just like waiting on stuff, like sitting on it, thinking, do I really like it? Or is it just trendy? Yes, I have the mini Uggs, but that's because I freaking love wearing comfy little Uggs. No, I don't have a Stanley Cup. I have my Hydro Flask that I got for Christmas because it's functional and it does what I want. And the Stanley Cup, honestly, is a little too big for me. And I wanted to be able to carry it around in my backpack, and it's just not practical for that. So just actually thinking through stuff and like seeing, okay, do I actually want it or is it just trendy? Okay, number 16, embrace the cringe. Embrace the cringe to a certain extent and have grace on the past cringe, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I feel like I was so cringy, especially my sophomore year of college, and it makes me like want to die looking back on it, but I have to remind myself to have grace for that past version of me because she ultimately helped bring me to where I am today, and I'm grateful for that. As hard as it is to look back on her sometimes, it's okay. But also embracing the cringe because, some people might think starting this podcast is cringy. People definitely think posting on social media is cringy, and I'm so glad I did that, even though a lot of my posts I look back and would delete. But even now, like people might think the stuff I post is cringy, and maybe in 5 years I'll think it's cringy. But you need to embrace the cringe at some point in your life, or you are not going to be successful. The most successful people have embraced the cringe, so just know that. And actually, that was my 16 and 17. I said embrace the cringe, and then 17 was, and also have grace on your past cringe and mistakes. So that's that. Number 18, life, especially college, is supposed to be fun. This is something I've struggled with my whole life, especially high school onward. I feel like I look back at 21 years old, I look back at my life and realize I was making it so much more serious and honestly miserable than it needed to be. Life is supposed to be fun. Again, I'm speaking to this as someone who takes life too seriously and is too hard on myself and stuff. If you're someone on the opposite end of the spectrum where you probably, kind of need to take things a little more seriously, get it a little bit more in check, know that that's you. But for me, I needed to loosen the reins a little bit. I needed to let myself have some fun. And this is something I'm really working on going forward because I like I said, a lot of my life have looked back at those times and been like, gosh, like, why was I taking it so seriously? That could have been so fun. Like, that's such a fun age. That's such a fun time in your life. And, that honestly caused me a lot of anxiety and frustration and anger, like looking back and regretting those things. But now I'm learning the past is the past. You can't change it. You just have to change what you do going forward. And so I'm 21 years old, and one of my resolutions this year is to act my age, literally act like a 21-year-old. Yeah, I'm going to have to take some things more seriously, but also life is supposed to be fun. And so if you're in college, no, college is supposed to be fun. And act your age. It's going to be all right. Number 19, you might have an identity crisis, especially if you place a lot of your identity into your grades or extracurriculars in high school. That was me. I placed a lot of my identity in my grades and extracurriculars in high school. And when I got to college and I had no extracurriculars, I had easy classes compared to high school where my classes were really challenging and I felt really fulfilled by getting a good grade. It was tough. It was freaking tough. I didn't know what to do. Like I said, I started posting on social media, which was like my passion project, and that gave me purpose. So that's what I recommend doing, is finding a way to, have that purpose. But it's like really hard, especially like in high school. I did like student council all 4 years. I played volleyball for 2 years, and then I coached volleyball. And then in college, I'm like, those parts of my identity are gone. And it's really weird because it feels like you worked so hard and you like built those parts of yourself up, and then they're just gone and they kind of don't really matter. And you got to start all over again, and you got to start proving yourself again. And you got to prove yourself to other people, which also feels like you're proving yourself to yourself. You're like, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. That's how I felt, at least. So it's okay if you have an identity crisis. It's okay if you're struggling with feeling fulfilled or finding a purpose. It will come back. I didn't think it would, but it will. And it's something I'm struggling with post-grad, even just a few weeks out of like, I no longer have the identity of being a student. Even in college, like I said, I took so much pride and placed so much of my identity and my value in my grades. And something I'm trying to do is shift that from saying like, I, have good grades, I'm good at school, to being like, I'm a hard worker and I am passionate about the things that I do. So I think making those shifts is super important. All right, number 20, we're almost done. You probably want to add a minor. Again, I'm coming from this from a business student perspective. I had to take 121 credit hours, I believe, and the required business student courses, like including the GEs and stuff, was not that many hours. Like I would still have had to take random classes. And I don't know if I'm just stupid, but I didn't realize that. Like I thought that all the required classes would get me to those hours, and a minor would put me over top. And so I was like taking these random classes. I'm like, why don't I add a minor? I added a minor a year before I graduated. So another bonus lesson here is you can change your minor and major, and it's going to be okay. It's no big deal for the most part. Again, all these things have disclaimers and stuff, but it's going to be okay. But I would recommend adding a minor when you first get to college, especially if you need extra hours and would have to take random classes anyways, because my minor was, I think, like 14 hours or something like that. It was not very much, and a couple of those hours overlapped for GEs. So yeah, I recommend. Okay, number 21, this is a fun one. Take advantage of the freebies you get as a college student and look into them. I would not have known about this unless my cousins told me about it. But here in Columbus, if you're a student, you can get like $25 or $35 tickets to the Blue Jackets games, which is our NHL team here in Columbus. That's so cool. You just have to show your student ID. So figure out what freebies are going on in your college town and take advantage of them. And also like just nationwide, like freaking my Spotify is like $5 or something like that because I'm a student, which is awesome. Okay, number 22, ask yourself, will it matter in 5 years? And if it won't, let yourself feel it, but don't get too stuck on it. Truly, this gives you so much perspective. Like, I mean, and it's so hard to hear in the moment maybe because you're like, yeah, maybe not, but my life is ending right now. But like really actually think about it. And then think about if that should be affecting your life as much as it is right now. Again, like I said, let yourself feel it, but don't make yourself more miserable than you have to be, especially if you're going to look back at it and laugh one day. And most of the times you are. Even if you're like, but like it's, most of the times you are. and you're going to be okay. And I love you. Okay, number 3, you're still so young. Be present. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to have it all figured out. Zoom out. Like, think of your 45-year-old self, or even think about your 20-year-old self talking to your 6-year-old self and everything she thought was the end of the world. And think about how silly that might have been. I think I feel so old sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I'm 10 years younger than I am, or 10 years older than I am. And sometimes I feel like I'm so old and I don't know what I'm doing with my life and I should have it all figured out by now. And it's so easy to look on social media and see people who are exactly your same age who seem to be doing so much more than you, and maybe they even are. But the fact of the matter is, if you're in college, you do not have to figure it out. Zoom out. Think of yourself when you're 80 years old. Think about how much of a baby you would feel like looking as your 80-year-old self down to your 20-year-old self. Like, you just started life. You just started figuring things out. You just started getting in the hang of things, and you're bound to make more mistakes along the way. And again, this is so cliche, but it's just the truth. So just zoom out whenever you're having a tough time. It's something I'm really telling myself right now, because I'm this is my first year out of college. How many people do I meet that are yeah, I've worked at this company for 10 years. 10 years? I wasn't in college and high school combined for 10 years. And that feels like my whole life as of right now. I can't even really remember much before high school. So zooming out and realizing kind of where you are on your timeline is really reassuring, honestly. It honestly is. When you take away the comparison aspect, think about it objectively, and you're fine. And you're young, and you're supposed to have fun, and you're supposed to make mistakes. And as long as you're moving, it's okay. It's okay if you take 1 step forward and 3 steps back. You just have to always be moving and thinking and doing something. And, maybe there's some seasons in your life when you're moving a lot slower than other seasons. As long as you are, in the grand scheme of things, always moving somewhere. Again, some seasons, some small seasons, you might literally almost be stagnant. But when you zoom out and you look over the course of a year or two, as long as you're always moving, it's going to be okay. And you're doing your best and you're doing everything you can. And just try your best. Just try your best. Okay, this episode is officially an hour long. Probably when I edit it, it's probably going to be shorter, because I feel like I rambled and was not making sense at some points. But we're still getting the hang of this podcast thing. But what matters is that we're doing it. Once again, we're launching and adjusting. And this is the adjustment process. But if you made it to the end, wow, thank you. I love you. Let's be best friends. And I hope that maybe a couple of these resonated with you. Of course, as I mentioned before, you know you and your situation best, and these are things I learned from myself and my situations. So they might apply to you broadly. They might apply to you very specifically, and I might be how does she know what's going on in my life? Or they might not apply to you at all, and you might be a totally different person than me who struggles with the exact opposite things. So take that into consideration too. I love you so much, and you're doing amazing. And thanks for listening to this love letter to you. XOXO, Abby. I'll see you next time. Bye.